What's up, guys? Hope everybody's doing great. Today we have a true unicorn behind me, the 2017 Pagani Huayra Black Mamba Carbon Edition. This thing is absolutely gorgeous to look at, and I'm gonna bring in my good friend, the owner of this car, Brian.
How you doing, brother?
So, B, explain to me why the Pagani.
So everybody's got their kind of goals in life when it comes to just pinnacle moments, right? And I'm an automotive freak. I love anything to do with the engineering aspect, and the Pagani brought an artistic aspect that a lot of cars can't do. I mean, you've known me for a little bit, and I'm a Porsche guy, Lamborghini guy, I'm a Nissan guy, I'm a Honda guy, I'm a everything guy at heart. But when it came to the top of the top for me, Pagani always screamed my name. But on the flip side, a lot of people just don't know the history of Pagani. The way I built my business and the way I grew up, because I grew up with nothing, and I was always told you're never going to achieve here or here or here. Well, I think Horatio did that in the car automotive scene. Remember, he was an engineer over at Lamborghini, and he brought the carbon fiber aspect to Lamborghini and some different ideas, and they kind of laughed him out. And then he said, all right, well, I'm going to go prove to everybody that I can do this. And that's what spoke to me. So,
Which is pretty awesome because that is exactly what Lamborghini did.
Yes.
Back in the day with Ferrari. And then
yes,
it's ironic. But
yes,
yeah, and a lot of people don't know this, but I love you because you are a Porsche guy and you are a JDM guy,
yeah,
like myself.
Oh, totally.
By the way, Brian has had a Porsche 918 Spider at the same time having a Carrera GT. He sold both of those to get the Pagani. This brings me back to my question in the beginning, why the Pagani? Because for me and for a lot of people, not most people, but for a lot of people, it might be quite crazy to have two beautiful pieces of art such as the 918 and the Carrera GT, which is an ultimate, that's for me the ultimate Porsche, which is the Carrera GT, because it's a true driver's car, V10, manual. It ticks all of those fantastic boxes. So what made you decide, you know what, I want to sell the 918 and I want to sell the Carrera GT to get the Pagani?
So the biggest emotional roller coaster in my life, in my car life, was that I started thinking about, this is an opportunity where I can get something that's full carbon, that is the engineering aspect of everything I love. Don't get me wrong, I still will stand by Porsche builds the best cars, hands down. And, when it comes down to it, I had the Ferraris, I have Lamborghinis, and I love everything about them. But every one of these brands are different. But what Pagani to me did was give me the opportunity to try something that was is stepping almost in the hypercar arena. It's not true. If you look at Koenigsegg and Bugatti, those are the hypercars, I guess you say, of the world. But what I appreciated more about Pagani over those brands was you can drive this thing. Listen, the Koenigsegg looks beautiful. You don't see anybody driving them. They're either have issues or people just can't afford to drive them because they have issues. Bugatti did an incredible thing breaking speed records, correct? Well, taking this around a corner, it's hands down the best driver I've ever been in my life. But letting go of a 918.
And just to interrupt you there, it's coming from someone who actually drives this car. A lot of people, I've met a lot of people, and I know a lot of people have fantastic supercars and hypercars who are mostly there to drive around and park in front of a restaurant or a nightclub and then go home. He actually drives his cars. He tracks his cars. So props and respect to that. When you tell me this, I take what you say into consideration, because I know where it's coming from, that you actually do drive these cars. So when you tell me something is a driver's car and you enjoy it, I listen.
There's nothing wrong with people wanting to buy something for a trophy piece. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy, when we first got this in, we took it on a rally the next day. I believe that cars are meant to be driven, and I believe they run better and they do better if you put them under the constraint they were built for. Track wise, let's face it, you can be a guy that owns a Pagani, but if you don't put any miles on it, have you truly really experienced what a Pagani could do? The same thing with the Porsches. I was a GT2 RS owner, and that thing saw a lot of time at BIR, and I enjoyed every second of it, and I worried about my life every second of it. But I really want to go out and say, hey, I've experienced car and the automotive scene for what it truly is. And these people build these pieces of art with the mindset that this is going to be driven hard, it's going to look amazing, and it's going to take it to the next level. Everything you do in this car, you feel, and you feel the car reacting with you, not for you. So you talk about the Carrera GT. That was a total driver's car. Not a ton of technology in that car. It scared the daylights out of me every time I drove it. But the difference was you really had to be aware and be understanding of your surroundings, because the car's not going to save you.
Yeah.
A lot of cars nowadays, they have a lot of technology. As good as the newer drivers are, a lot of times they have new technology that's taken them to that next level. You've seen my collection. I like the stuff that doesn't have even ABS in it.
Yeah.
So
That's more my style. That's why I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that, and I feel like sometimes when you drive these machines the way they're intended, it's almost a sign of respect to the people who created it.
Absolutely.
Because they put in all those R&D hours. They spent all of those millions. And I know that deep down those guys want to give it to someone who actually drives it to be like, yes, this is what we built it for.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong, like you said, with an art piece or a trophy piece. But I always felt that there was kind of that sense of appreciation to the engineers, to the designers, with those people who drive their cars the way they're intended.
Yeah, and you're correct. But, I now know from owning this, the fear of driving it too.
You literally, that was my next question.
Yeah. So that was what, I had a situation where I was driving the car down the highway, just cruising, nothing. But I saw in my rearview mirror, or not rearview, side mirror. The rearview mirror you can't see because of the snorkel, but I saw a car, and it was an Altima or something, and they were flying. And I'm going 80, but they're flying to get next to me. And then I realized the driver's hanging out the window at the same time going over 100 miles per hour with a phone. And I'm always aware of my surroundings. I used to ride bikes, and you have to be aware of your surroundings. And I said, man, this isn't going to end well, because I saw traffic stopped up ahead of me. And I was like, uh-oh, I got to figure this out. What are my situation? What can I do? Well, instead of him slamming on his brakes and going right and being in the right lanes, he came towards me. So I ended up having to, basically stop the car quickly and say, hey, if anybody hits this car, there's not a part that I can just go to Pagani and say, hey, I need this whole rear end. I mean, there's a reason that Hamilton Zonda was wrecked and totaled.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrecked it. They don't have extra parts just sitting around for those cars. Yeah. But it really taught me that as much as I appreciate driving these machines, I can now appreciate why people don't want to drive them a lot in the normal atmospheres.
Agreed. Agreed. And this also brings me back to when I said track days. You might assume that when you take a car like this to a track day, first of all, the track days that we go to are 90% private. All of the people there are our friends. So there is no car driving in front of him throwing rock chips at him. There's no random people. So the risk is ridiculously low. If anything, it's so much safer, because even if he were to have driver error, which is pretty rare, I know you're not going to have driver error, but still, you have runoff areas, you have safe zones where the car can just stop on its own and not get wrecked. So one thing I absolutely adore about this car is not just the fact that it's Italian. To me, this is a match made in heaven, because it's Italian and German engineering hand in hand. Yeah. And you know me, I'm a massive AMG guy. Yeah. And I love, the special AMG engines, because AMG is quite broad, but they have their unique pieces. And this, V12 bi-turbo is absolutely ridiculous. I would, just love to stare at this all day. I wouldn't mind having just a piece of this engine in my house sitting on a display. It's just fantastic.
A lot of people say, oh, my car feels like a jet. No, this feels like a jet. I always laugh whenever I hear people saying, even like Lamborghini, the cockpit feels like a jet, and when you go and get on it, it feels like a jet. No, not until you drive a Pagani. So the Pagani engine, it has so much finesse, but it also has so much torque that it just makes it a really amazing piece of art.
How are the driver assists here? Because I'm assuming you have, what's the 735?
I think it's 780 horsepower and then 700 pounds or 800 pounds of torque. I can't remember exact.
So you must have some kind of, traction.
There's a little bit of traction control, but I wouldn't even call it that much of traction control, because I've gotten to experience it a little bit, and I can tell you that it lacks any major traction control, because you got to remember, this is a this is a heavier car because of the engine.
Yeah.
If you really take this car, a lot of the weight is right here in the rear.
Yes, engine and transmission.
Yes,
that's literally the weight of this car.
Half the car is the engine and transmission.
The way they are very different machines, but looking at the transmission here and looking at the engine and the way it's laid out, I can only think of one car, the CLK GTR.
Oh yeah,
the Mercedes CLK GTR.
Yep.
It's really, I don't know, it's reminiscent of it, the way it.
Yeah, and then just the suspension aspect of it. I mean, they thought through it to be able to support this mono frame that they've created, the shell around the engine, and just be so stiff, but also have enough finesse that you enjoy driving it. It's pretty amazing. So
it's really a refined race car, huh?
Yes,
it's a race car. It is a race car.
I mean, that's all they did. They put airbags and a radio and AC, and they gave you a race car. It's similar to the 918. I mean, when you're in a 918, you realize pretty quickly when you're driving it, you're like, okay, this probably wasn't meant to be on the road, but let's go ahead and put it on the road.
The difference between, like, when I was driving your 918, like I was telling you, I had serious anxiety being on public roads and having people surround you.
Yeah.
But the attention and the wow factor of that car is it for us. But for the non-car person, I think this is like amplified and way more, like you said, scary, I would say, to drive.
Yes, there's definitely some fear to it, but I'm telling you what, you feel like a god in this car when you're driving it. I mean, I know it's kind of crazy to say, but you know every part of this car was a piece of the artwork, and it's incredible. I mean, if we look at the carbon, I mean, look at this carbon. Nobody really has carbon that looks this beautiful.
Yeah, well, we think it's carbon, right? But it's not.
Yeah, it's
carbon titanium.
Yes,
it's carbotanium weave in it. It's like,
and I love how they match every weave throughout the body of the car, except the one part they don't is here, and it's just because
it's a different weave. Weave. But are there, like, for example, in the P1 and in other cars, you can tell the different weaves?
Yes.
Like, for example, you see here, it does have it, like the interior carbon.
Yep.
It does have two different weaves. Are they two different weaves or are they three different weaves? If you can see here, look at this weave, the carbotanium. It's quite thick. And then you look here, it's quite thin and refined, similar to the interior over here. Do you know of, because I personally don't know of any other, are they two different weaves or three different weaves on this car? Or?
I'm not sure, but I mean, when they thought this through, they did a great job making sure it doesn't become an interruption. When you look at this, you barely can't tell, even when the weaves are smaller or larger, because you're so fixated on all the other beauty of the car.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. So
it's really a piece of art. Like, looking at this thing, you almost want to put it on a rotating parking space, and it just turns it around.
So something interesting about Pagani, when they really came out with this car, they put Pagani Huayra Roadster. They put Roadster everywhere on this car, and I was, it's one of those things where it's almost fun to count. Even the wheels have Roadster on it. The dash has Roadster on it. The different parts of the car have Roadster on it. This has Roadster on it. It's on the rear of the car. I will say this is the one car I can say that I haven't tracked. And it's one of those cars I don't know if I will or not. Track insurance isn't too friendly on this one.
I can imagine.
But I will say, out of our group, having the respect that we do with our private track,
you'll have the track to yourself, basically. There'll be nobody in front of you.
They do a good job about that. But this car was meant to be driven, and it's there's a gentleman actually in the U.S. that owns one, and he's got over 40,000 miles on it.
Wow.
It's that, to me, he's like the king. And Horatio, I think I hear he's even got one I got Zonda that's got over 40,000
I know Horatio has one that has a ridiculous amount of miles on. That's like Pagani's statement demo car, basically.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This isn't just about a car being a statement piece. There's reliability in this thing.
Yeah, like, I mean, I would assume that's coming from the German engineering behind it a little bit.
I'm German. Germans don't like things to break,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love when companies do that. When Lamborghini merged with Audi.
Oh, that was amazing. When the technology got better, and they started sticking up their game. So
it's beautiful. And Aston Martin too went with the Mercedes AMG. Yeah. Beautiful. And I like the simple stuff. Like, you see the filter here. Like, this is the exact same filter that I would use. It looks like BMC filter.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's just phenomenal. And the Olean suspension, are they adjustable at all? Can you mess with them or not really? They're
So
just set from factory.
these are set from factory. I would assume that there's adjustments that can be made by the factory, but I personally, I think Pagani knows what they're doing, and I wouldn't mess with it.
Yeah.
But you know me, I add wheels and suspension to almost all my cars.
That's why I'm asking you, because I know how you are.
This is the one I said, I'm going to leave this bad boy alone. We did a series where we built some custom wheels for it, and we built it. And then we decided, okay, we got our photo shoot with those wheels, and now we're back on the stock wheels.
So just to ask you, how would you build custom wheels for this car? Would you just approach a company, a manufacturer, a wheel manufacturer, you give them the dimensions of the wheel and they basically forge it for you?
Yeah, so what you do is you have to figure out it really comes down to offset and what size you want to run.
Okay.
If you're going to go a little bit larger, a little bit wider, you have to sit there and figure out, okay, what can the car take on an offset? And that's what we have to figure out first. So we figure out the offset. We figure out, do we want a little bit bigger of a wheel when it comes to maybe a little wider, a little bit beefier of a tire, and we do that. And then you approach a wheel manufacturer that wants the opportunity to have a piece of art on a piece of art. We ended up building a carbon barrel wheel and a red face because we wanted to do something a little bit different. And it turned out well for the photo shoot, but I will say this, these wheels look amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, the stock wheels look better than almost any wheel you can put on here.
Yeah, I love the stock wheels. I love the finish. I love the offset. I love everything about them. And I see what you mean. Everything is literally stamped with Roadster on this car.
Roadster, Pagani, it's everywhere, man.
How's because I know, and this is weird that you own this car and it still has stock exhausts on. This is
that is weird for me.
Very strange for me.
So really what it came down to is I was going to start working on having somebody do a straight pipe exhaust for it. And, there's just, because I love the sound. I want it opened up as loud as it can be. But then I started really thinking about it. I'm like, all right, if I do that, what tuner can I really trust with something that has been made to be perfect?
I can imagine only Pagani, maybe.
Yeah, and you could probably get Pagani to trick it. But then you really got to decide, will Pagani do it? And then they're probably going to charge me 40 grand just to tune it. And also this car is pretty special because it has a full warranty and full maintenance till 2028 in the middle of the year. Wow. So it's also one of those things, do I really want to mess with that?
Yeah.
Because there's a convenience factor to knowing that Pagani has one of the best services I've seen. They'll pick the car up, they'll take it, they get everything done, they deliver the car back, and they make the experience seamless and amazing.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It is risky. I agree with you. It's just, when we're messing around with YouTube and we hear those straight pipe Paganis, it's like a Formula One car. It's unbelievable.
Well, and trust me, if I just decided to keep this long term and just really go all out, you know me, I'd rip this exhaust off in a second and put it on a shelf just to display it.
It's not like this exhaust is a normal exhaust. This exhaust is Inconel titanium. Like, it is the top of the top, the creme de la creme of exhaust. It's ridiculous. And so I just can imagine maybe that there is in the catalytic converters that's where the restriction is.
So yeah, it is. What they do is there's actually a company down in Florida, I can't remember the name right now, but they do make a open downpipe for it.
Okay.
And it does open up quite a bit. And they have tuned a couple of these. And trust me, I went down all the way to the rabbit hole. I was like, okay, $15,000 for the downpipes and the tune for a couple grand. And I'm going to be out there screaming like my SVJ does. And I can't wait. But then I'm like, all right, there's one thing about getting in this car. And my wife actually enjoyed driving in this car because it was actually, she could hear herself.
It is a designer handbag. There's a lot of stuff for the ladies. It appeals to the ladies as well.
It does. It does a good job. If Pagani did something right, they basically make you feel like it's as stable as a Porsche and it's as sexy and hardcore as a Lamborghini, but has the finesse of a Ferrari where you can get in this thing.
That's true. It's a good way of putting it.
It is. It's a mixture of everything. Look, I kind of hated on the Koenigsegg's and the Bugattis a little bit. The Bugatti just, I don't want to spend 50 grand a year to change tires. But it's one of the most mind-blowing, beautiful cars too. And Koenigsegg created the sexiest machine look-wise. When you think about what they did with the automatronics, like opening up the car, all this cool stuff. But it really comes down to, if you want the total package,
Mhm.
Pagani's where it's at.
Mhm.
If you're going to take that next step away from Lamborghini, Ferrari, Porsche, I'm going to tell you right now, this is way safer than the other twos.
I think Pagani found their next spokesperson 100%. You guys should give him another
Good allocation.
No, this is fantastic, really, and to hear your input, it's very important. And this is all before we take it out and before we drive it. I want to know as much as possible with regard to this car, because he knows it very well. I don't know this car very well. I'm just anticipating how it would be like. The only time I've ever been really in a Pagani was in Saudi Arabia. It was in a Tricolore, which is one of three, and never really got to actually drive it and get that mechanical feel, and just feel how the car behaves and all that kind of sort of things. But yeah, how is the transmission on this car? Does it feel like a sequential, or does it feel like automatic?
It really feels, again, that's the one area that they still, I would say, are a little back in time, because everybody's gotten used to DCT transmissions. But I actually kind of appreciate it, because it feels just like, sequential, single clutch, and it makes you feel like you're still respecting that this is a race car.
A little bit jerky, gives you that race car jerkiness.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Good. I like that.
I do too.
I know a lot of people, like in the SVJs, for example, with the single clutch, even though it's not a sequential, it's a pedal shift. It's that jerkiness people hate.
The SVJ, like, it gets so much hate, but every time I drive it, it makes you respect it.
Yeah.
And because you're not in a car of comfort. I have a Technica, and I feel like I'm driving any BMW or any normal car in the world, because it's so smooth. Now, don't get me wrong,
it's an awesome car. Yeah,
awesome,
I get it.
But it's not that feeling of you are on a road in a car that has a ton of power and that's capable of so much.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. But I'm the guy that goes to car shows, and I still respect when people are building Hondas and putting big brake systems on it. So
that's why we click, because we appreciate all cars, regardless of whatever the pinnacle of hypercar is. You can always appreciate a good machine, whatever it is.
I mean, we're talking about this today, but I'm going to tell you, I'm so excited. My R34 is coming in on Sunday.
Oh,
and I'm just like, I can't wait, So,
by the way, I can't wait to see those things. I hope you guys will get to see it too, because Brian has an iconic, to me, it's the JDM Unicorn, which is the R33, the R400, basically, and a beautiful blue R34 coming in.
It's a Bayside blue R34. It's an ATTKD car, so I got a very special engine, and the 400R Nismo is just downright incredible. Driving it is crazy that they had so much. I mean, it feels like you're driving an exotic, but it's from 1996.
I love how we switched. We're right here with a Pagani. Yeah. This is what, how much million?
Probably a $3.5 million car.
$3.5 million. We're here talking about Japanese cars and everything. This is how you know a car guy is a real car guy, because you really do appreciate the JDMs. You appreciate the American muscle. You appreciate the tuners. You appreciate the bespoke hypercars and supercars and all that stuff. So I want to show them the leather in this car, because being a bespoke car and having all that leather, like here, I'll take that. All right, so Brian, I only know of the luggage here and what you showed me in the back. Is there any other bespoke leather other than the interior? Because these are quite hidden, which we'll get to now. But
so no, really, on the back of the seat, you have a garment bag, and then you have a smaller bag that's in the back of the seat.
Do you have the garment bag on both sides for like gentlemen and women?
Yes, it's both sides, and then it clicks in. The garment bag, it comes right off the seat, so you can hang the garments on.
Yeah, Italians love their suits, and I'm assuming that's why that's there.
They do, and then everything's got leather somewhere. And then in here, this is like the cool factor of just having really nice leather carbon bags with just you can put anything in. So it's incredible, like what they thought of, because it's funny, another friend of ours talked about Ford GTs and how they have no luggage room, and I made a quick post on Instagram one day saying, well, Pagani thought of it all. They want you to be able to go on your weekend trips. They want you to go to travel the roads of Italy.
What you said about the combination, I like what you said when you said it can be as aggressive as a Lamborghini, as stable as a Porsche, and also has that appeal that of Ferrari. Finesse, it's just fantastic, and it's true.
And it's a car made for all. It's got plenty of knee room. Like if you get an SVJ, the big center console restricts you.
Yeah.
So
The
bigger.
center is small here. You're right. The
Yeah.
console is quite.
It's super small. You can fit a body in here. It's pretty nice.
Can you fit anything in this compartment or not really? The center
No, there's not
compartment is
much
just.
there. I mean, it's basically, you could put a cord in there. It definitely doesn't have a ton of room.
Wow.
They lack cup holders unless you want to find a small cup and put it in the.
I don't know anyone who wants to have a cup holder in this car, but yeah, back to what you were saying, because I got a little bit sidetracked.
Yeah.
I understand also what you meant when you were saying that it is kind of terrifying to drive this car,
Yeah.
because I recently learned, and I didn't know that, but I learned that that scoop alone is 100-something thousand euro.
Yes.
Just the
pretty
scoop
expensive.
alone, and the wing here, along with the canards in the front.
Yep.
I learned that they're what, 150
Yeah.
something thousand euros, and that's back then when you ordered it. So now
Yes.
I'm assuming it's even
Yeah.
more ridiculous.
So that's the funny part, is the euro moves up and down. US dollar is still, everything's so much money. But this car is outfitted, I would say, just with so much perfection. I mean, it's got the aero, and that's why I wanted it. I love the way that Huayra looks, but man, you put this aero on it and that snorkel, it's hard to find a car that looks better after you do this stuff to it.
Before and I'm so anxious to like take it out, but I love to look at the little details when it comes to these cars. It's just, even those fins in the back here,
Yeah.
you never notice this when the car is covered.
Nope.
But then you open it and you see the light come
Yep.
through and all that stuff.
Yep.
It's just,
it's all vintage.
unbelievable.
It's functional. This is a functional car.
you need to have a space really inside your house where you can park something like this inside momentarily, you know, have a coffee, stare at it, talk to it a little bit, and then.
You know, I had to really prove that I love my wife more than this car.
I think
she might be making me sell it. I'm just kidding.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is tough competition.
Yeah.
No, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. Is this a US spec thing, or is this how they come from Europe? Because again, I'm not aware of that.
So I'm not sure either. I know that the US has, for DOT regulations, you have to have those. So I'm pretty sure that's something that they put on for the flare. Because if you go to Japan or Europeans, they, a lot of times, you know, the reflectors are a clear color, they're not there at all. But, you know, with anything, when it comes to North America, we have our own regulations when it comes to a car coming to the state. But we don't regulate our food very well. You can
Yeah,
eat
we don't really. Our food is,
yeah,
it's amazing. We regulate every single thing for safety, but the most important thing, our
most
food,
important thing we don't do anything with. So
no, it's phenomenal. It's amazing to look at. Like, I can imagine, even now thinking about it, but owning something like this, you want to park it often and look at it. You don't just want to keep driving it, because you want to get to see what.
Well, when it's at home, I spent a lot of time in my garage, whether it was hot or cold. And luckily I had enough room in my garage where I can just open it up and just really enjoy the car.
Just looking at the air ducts here, I'm assuming these are brake cooling ducts. Yeah, it's amazing, the level of detail. Like, it looks gorgeous when it's closed, but opening it up and really getting to see the, you know, what the engineers were doing when they built this car is just fantastic. I love that. I always like to do that, just to look at the bolts. I even like to compare sometimes. Do they use torque screws? Do they use hex screws? Do they?
On every bolt,
it's crazy.
it says Pagani.
No.
Yep.
You're kidding?
No, every bolt.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. Every bolt does say Pagani.
Every bolt says Pagani.
And let me guess, I'm assuming they're all titanium bolts.
Oh, of course.
Of course they are.
You can't order these from Pagani. A Pagani dealer has to put them on.
Oh, yeah, because you could just put them somewhere else.
Well, that's why the Tempest kit, the snorkel and stuff, Pagani had to put it on. You can't just buy it and have somebody put it on.
What's the story behind the Black Mamba carbon fiber? Is it named after the snake, or what is it exactly? I'm unaware.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure either, but I'm assuming so. I know that Pagani gives you a ton of room and free path to really bespoke your own car. That could be anything from tinting the carbon fiber. That can be anything from any color scheme that you want to. That can be from a raw carbon option. I think this is like 400 grand more just to, you know, leave it exposed.
Because they're all carbon, right? But some of them are painted. And
yes, they're all carbon, but some of them are painted. And that's what, I guess, I mean, I could respect it, the upcharge, because when you go raw carbon now, you have to utilize this and
Yeah.
follow the same pattern. The other thing is when you think about this black Mamba, they really did a good job keeping to that. It's got a little bit of subtle color to it. The interior with the red bespoke interior, it looks amazing the way they really outfitted this car.
I love how they have the weight badges on the side. Beautiful. Yeah, back to what you were saying about the exposed carbon and why it's more expensive to keep it exposed. I assume also it's because you can't hide the weaves.
No.
You need the continuity, and the weaves need to match, which makes
Yes.
it a more complicated process.
Yes.
Because you can't have a weave moving in one direction and then you close it, and then the other weave looks like it's moving in another direction.
Exactly. So there's a lot of work put behind that, because I mean, there's some carbon fiber cars, exposed cars out there, but when you open them up, they don't share the same aspect as some of these cars. And a lot of them do, like the hypercars do, but I mean, you can see it from when we open the front to the back. That carbon's following the entire time through the whole car.
Like I always talk about this, it's continuity.
Yes.
On most cars,
Yep.
The continuity on this car is ridiculous because they do it in a great way where even when the angles change, like here, you see, it works perfectly, but you can't tell where it meets. Like here's the line where it meets along with here.
Yep.
It's just beautiful. Is this what is this? Is this a sensor or is it a magnet to tell you that it's closed?
I would say that's probably something of a sensor to let me know it's closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a couple of them around the car.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I am anxious. Should we get to it?
Yeah, let's we'll get this thing closed up and take it out there for a spin.
Yes, let's close it up. I know you need help, so let me give the camera to my lovely camera woman.
I've actually gotten pretty good at closing it myself because
I can imagine.
Yeah. I always tell people it's still meant to be handled.
I agree. But handled in a good way. Is this the same process? We click?
Yep.
All right, ready?
Go.
Also, I like the fact that with these leather straps, they just give you one hole to let you know that this is the point. You don't
stretch.
You don't adjust it. You don't stretch it.
Yeah,
like a belt. Oh wow! Actually, it looks phenomenal. Like closed, it looks brilliant. It is a piece of art, huh? The design, the angles. Yeah, there is no bad angle for this car. It's just...
I don't know if you noticed, but it has a design that doesn't allow you to see the reflection very well. So
True.
It hides away, like,
True. It does. It kind of absorbs the light in a way, which is rare for gloss carbon because usually the carbon kind of reflects.
You can see everything off this car.
All right. So, is this brown carbon fiber or am I seeing things?
No, I think that a lot of people don't realize that carbon in its rare form is going to look like that once you put a gloss on it. A lot of times, people are tinting carbon fiber with the clear, but this is a pretty raw exposure with it has, I'm sure in the clear, a little bit that amplifies some of that coloration coming out, and it's picking up everything around it too, color-wise. I mean, and I'm colorblind and I can see it, and it's pretty amazing.
You're not colorblind.
I am colorblind. Blue and purple don't do well with me.
Well, this is brown, so
yeah, no, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
But yeah, like Kevin said also, because he noticed something, and I agree with it. Most carbon is quite reflective.
Yeah.
In an almost annoying way.
Yep.
This one kind of hides your reflection well, so when you come close to it and try to film it, it doesn't really reflect you as much. So you can really focus on the carbon detail. It's amazing. Yeah, they really do work their magic with their design. I don't know how they do it. Before we head out, I just want to show you this cool box from Pagani that basically holds the 2 keys that's signed as well. And so yeah, we already have 1 key because we're going to take the car out. It's so cool because the keys actually look like the Huayra, and they're quite heavy. They've got some weight to them. So little details like that are pretty interesting. But yeah, let's drive the car. It does suit you.
Now, this car will do suit for anybody.
It's going to be interesting driving this thing.
So you ready to go for a ride?
Absolutely, but I'm just, like I said, remember when I was driving your 918? I
Yeah.
had anxiety.
Yeah.
Driving this thing, I'm probably going to have way more anxiety. Okay. I didn't know it was panoramic.
Doesn't look that way because on the outside
Yeah.
you can't tell. Tinted glass.
Wow, the mirrors look like teardrops.
Oh yeah, Euro mirrors. It's funny, at first I wasn't sure I was going to be like in love with it, but then I started driving it. I was like, man, you can see so much more now. When you're driving this thing, it's not just for braking. You can actually see the flaps working with the corners. So it's really amazing how they thought through that. So when you're riding in this car, you can enjoy it. You can listen to some music, and I think you'll appreciate it. But if you want the true enthusiast car, I mean, that's when you're straight piping or you got a Zonda. So the Zonda, I mean, you're in a race car. It's got a great sound system in it. It's got AC. I mean, which, I guess we could throw that on for a minute since it is a warmer day. Yeah, it's a very limited traction control. That's why when you asked me about the technology, I'm like, it's very limited. So.
I love this thing. I really, really like this thing. Excuse me? Yes.
Those are horses.
By the way, I put it in manual mode so it doesn't shift for me on the downshift. I always thought if I ever got to drive a Pagani, it'll be somewhere like in London or in LA. I never thought I'll be driving a Pagani in South Carolina.
You could see a cow.
Honestly, I prefer it. I prefer this. And it has AC, which is actually really good. It's not like a horrible AC system like in a lot of cars.
Yes.
The 918 actually was pretty good. I love how you trust me to drive this thing with traction off. It's not.
I've seen you drive before.
But I'll tell you what, the price tag scares the shit out of me. Like, I'm happy, but I'm not comfortable.
Yeah.
If it makes any sense.
Yeah, it gives you all the joys in the world and all the fears in the world.
You know, you can feel the weight of the car in the back,
Yes.
it is the engine really, because this whole car probably weighs nothing.
Yeah, the engine is a heavy, heavy piece, but it's reliable.
AMG, baby.
The seats feel good. They hug you just enough.
Yeah, seats are really very comfortable for what it is. I love how it's reminding me in red, like traction is off, ESC is off.
Yes.
And then it has a warning at top where traction is up and another warning below. It's like three warnings telling you traction control is off. It's like, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Are you positive?
What an absolute pleasure this machine is. It's not just a marvel of engineering and art, but it feels like it has a soul. I'd compare it to a piece of jewelry, but that wouldn't do it justice. I'd say it's more like a treasure chest that's composed of many pieces combined, because everywhere you look, it's one jewel after another. Despite the terrifying price tag, the fun factor is incredible, as you can tell by our constant grins and smiles. I suppose that's to be expected when you have a lightweight, mid-engine, rear-wheel drive hypercar powered by a monstrous V12 bi-turbo by Mercedes-AMG. You can tell that it was built with pure reliability in mind, because despite the solid 791 horsepower and 775 pound-foot of torque, that's actually quite a conservative figure for a twin-turbo V12. To put things into perspective in today's terms, for example, the Ferrari SF90, I know it produces almost 1000 horsepower because of its V8 twin-turbo motor along with its two electric motors, but the V8 twin-turbo motor alone in that car produces 769 horsepower, and that's not so far off the Pagani's V12 twin-turbo motor. When driving it on public roads, I could quickly tell what Brian was talking about with regards to the attention, because my side eye kept catching incoming cars with phones popping up to get a close-up of the Pagani. Very common experience with supercars, but the exposed carbon Huayra just takes it to a whole different level. And frankly, it can be quite sketchy when the other drivers sharing the road are looking at the Pagani rather than what's in front of them. I understand the excitement, believe me, as it is a true beauty and I'd probably want to film or take a picture of it as well. But there's always a way to do so with a level of discretion and respect without putting your safety and others at risk, like hanging out the window and not looking at the road. That being said, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Wherever you are, stay safe, and until next time. Ciao.